Good afternoon. It's time for stanza 33 of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. I'll read the stanza and then Swami Kriyananda will sing the stanza. We'll hear a few words from the paraphrase by Paramahansa Yogananda. Then to the rolling heaven itself I cried, asking what lamp had destiny to guide her little children stumbling in the dark? And a blind understanding, heaven replied.
Stanza 33. Then to the rolling heaven itself I cried, asking what lamp had destiny to guide her little children stumbling in the dark. And a blind understanding, heaven replied. Paraphrase. As my soul soared ecstatically through heavenly spheres, I compared my joyous state with that of my earthbound brothers. I saw them stumbling about in darkness and confusion, dazed by ignorance, and clutched at by misery. I saw them dragged forward by the chains of self-created karma, transported endlessly from human birth, fraught with fearful risks and uncertainties, to unwilling death.
In stanza 32 yesterday, that Padma read, it said that Omar was reporting that he had achieved a state in meditation in which there was a door to which he could find no key, meaning he couldn't get past. Meditators often talk about they reach a door, a block, to going any further. There was a veil past I could not see, some little talk a while of me and thee. And then it seemed no more of thee and me. And so that's the setting for today's stanza. He's in this deep state of meditation, of upliftment, of an expanded and intuitive view of life and meaning, and he pauses, as it were, to look back, and to look back in his life, to look back, as it were, over the earth, and to see and to ask this door at which he stands, this. It seems impersonal at that point, but one is in me and thee, it says in stanza 32. So he's in communication with Divine Mother, with his soul, with the intuitive voice of the divine. And he asks, what lamp has destiny given to guide people out of the dark of their confusion? And the response he gets seems a little disheartening, even a little a little harsh. And it says, a blind understanding, heaven replied. It reminds me of that interesting episode in the life of Jesus Christ when, he was telling parables to the multitudes, really thousands of people out of doors teaching, and one parable after another. And the New Testament reports that after one such homily, as the Christian pastors say these days, after one such sermon, his disciples gathered together with Jesus, asked him in a kind of perplexed and even irritated tone, why do you speak in parables? And Jesus' response was seemingly a little bit harsh, like we hear here. It's not intentionally harsh, as we'll explain, but he says, to them I speak in parables, for they have neither ears to hear nor eyes to see. To you then I speak directly. Now, of course, the rest of that conversation, the directness of which was inferred or promised, is not recorded in the New Testament. But what's curious about it is Jesus was recognizing, acknowledging that though he spoke and was teaching in a public ministry and giving spiritual precepts through the medium of his parables, his stories, he understood that very few of them would really understand and act upon and allow their lives to be changed by those stories, and more importantly, by his own vibration and transmission of spiritual awakening to them. And it's as if he didn't finish the sentence. And so it is here with Omar, when the voice of intuition responds to his question, how do people find their way out of the darkness of life? And when I say darkness, I don't mean anything terrible particularly. I mean, life is crushing, of course, but mostly it's just restless confusion, doesn't take you anywhere. Maybe you had a good life, maybe you didn't, but it all doesn't really add up to very much in certain terms. In any case, that intuitive voice has a blind understanding is all they have, meaning they have their reason, they have their experience, they have whatever. And in both cases, both in Jesus' case and in Omar's, the rest of the sentence is implied. And as Yogananda wrote, this is Kriyananda's editorial comment. He says, the tone of this stanza seems uncharacteristically harsh, yet it springs from a feeling of deep compassion for mankind. The very reprimand implied is rooted in love. You see, in the creation, it seems to be the intent of the Creator and the MO, the modus operandi of creation, that we are left to our own devices, to a blind understanding. We are left to experience for ourselves what works and what doesn't work. And as has been said in India, in the Sanatana Dharma of India, more clearly perhaps than in other traditions, but not really. The Buddhists have Buddha, the Mohammedans have Muhammad, the Christians have Jesus. All traditions basically say that our awakening comes when we are ready to listen, when we are seeking and ready to listen and hear with eyes to see the voice of God through the teacher, through the guru. And that is the necessary spark, the divine spark. But we have to be like kindling. When I create the wood stove, when I create the fire in my wood stove in the mornings, I have to put in the kindling. And I can't just light a log. I have to very carefully put in the paper and a little bit of fuel, arrange the sticks just right. I have to nurture and tend the fire. And bit by bit, it takes half hour, 45 minutes or more, until it becomes turns into coals. Then I can bit by bit put in bigger pieces of wood. And then once it's going and the coals are there underlying the wood that I put in every hour or so, then it works, you see. And so what's not said in either case, either the stanza or in my example of Jesus and his disciples and his unending, annoying parables that really make no sense, at least I never understood most of them, is that you have to be ready. When the disciple is ready, the guru appears. This is a very deep and long-standing truth precept. We have to be ready until, as we often quote Yogananda's autobiography, until the soul awakens to the anguishing monotony of the prospect of repeated rounds of birth and death and rebirth. Does it seek a way out and seek the escape clause of divine grace, and is open, therefore, to listen finally instead of to impose our will upon the world around us. That seems harsh, but it's the love given to us to make the choices that seem right to us. And does it take a long time? Yes, but only in time. In eternity, there is no time. And so it has been said that those who achieve their freedom, they look back and they clap and say, "Ah, what a great show. The greatest story ever told." And there's no regrets. There's nobody who achieves freedom thinks, "Oh, that was a bummer. I'd rather go back to being an alcoholic or famous or beautiful or whatever." Nobody says that. And so, I've been thinking that we use the term spiritual and being spiritual and so forth, but the underlying seed impulse that inflamed Yogananda's life work occurred to him, he said, on a trip to Japan when he was still probably not even, I don't know, maybe he was 20 years old, I forget, maybe 22. He went to Japan very briefly. He didn't care much for what he found in Japan. He stayed a few days and headed back. But there occurred to him that the Adi Shankaracharya's famous definition of God as Satchidanandam, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new joy, was really the seed thesis for his work. That thesis being not new to anything, but the thesis being that all of us are seeking happiness and to avoid suffering. This is what impels all creation, even lower life forms, in their search for meaning, in their search for happiness. And it occurs to me, therefore, that when we talk about being spiritual, we could just as easily, with right understanding, substitute the word happiness. We're seeking happiness. You could say we're seeking to be spiritual, but then you have to define what's spiritual. Does it mean helping little old ladies across the street or kissing babies and petting puppies? Well, for some people, unfortunately, that's all it amounts to. But no, it means I'm seeking happiness wisely. I'm seeking happiness because I have sought the key to happiness through the truth precepts taught by the world's great spiritual teachers, those who express happiness, contentment, satisfaction, confidence, and calmness amidst the crash of breaking worlds, even when nailed to a cross. That's what we're seeking, is that power, that spirit, that calmness, that contentment, that confidence, and yes, that joy that can withstand the vicissitudes of daily life and the crash of the breaking worlds that come upon our lives from time to time. This really is what Omar is talking about here. The response he gets really in silence that they don't understand. What's unstated by the divine intuitive voice to Omar is that they have to be ready. God has given us the choice to be free or the choice to remain in bondage. That itself is an act of love. It is an act of confidence in our wisdom, innate seed of wisdom, that will, even through blind understanding at first, bit by bit, will find its way out of the mess we have made by our past choices. Be free, be happy. Joy to you.